Another month has passed, and that means it's time for me to stop and rank all 9 March new releases that I saw from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean Chandler, and I like to talk about movies way too much, like my shirt says. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Tell me, which new releases did you see in the month of March? Which ones did you love, and which ones did you hate? As I go into this, I'm specifically looking at the new releases that came out in the month of March. So I saw Shazam like 2 weeks ago, but it's an April release, so I'm not going to include it in this video. It will be in next month's video. Also, one final thing, you can get shirts like this in my merch store. There's a link down below. There's going to be a sale this weekend where shirts are going to be 35% off. That's the lowest price that I've seen them do thus far. So just so you know, if you're interested in some of the shirts that I wear inside of my videos. With that said, let's get started. In last place is Captive State. Now, this movie has a great alien invasion setup. The cast is amazing. The director is the guy that did Rise of the Planets of the Apes, a movie that I really enjoyed. And it's all wasted in the execution. It's a very oddly made movie in that there's not really a clear protagonist. Like, there's characters that we follow at certain points in time, and then we follow different groups of people other points in time. The first 30 minutes appears to be about 2 characters, and then for the middle 30 minutes of the movie, you follow entirely different people, and then we kind of follow all of them in the third act. And because of this, there's no one that we're really rooting for, that we want to be successful in any of it, which makes it so you can't care about any of it. When you get to the end, that should be like this big twist reveal about everything that should be satisfying me, like, oh, now I get what's been going on. It doesn't really work because you don't care about any of it because it's so disjointed. It actually felt to me like they restructured the movie in editing, as if they saw the first cut and they went, this doesn't really work very well, and decided to move pieces around and add characters in. That's what it feels like. I haven't found any indicators in any articles that that is what happened, but this movie is disjointed and it just simply does not work. Coming in 8th place is Greta. This is a stalker movie about this kind of weird, eccentric old lady that makes a friendship with this girl in her 20s who's newly moved to New York City. And the first 45 minutes or so were pretty good, kind of creepy in what was going on. The acting is great. The cast is great. Some of the characters really pop. And then as you move into the stalker elements of it, it just gets so outlandish and the logic doesn't make any sense. Characters keep doing unbelievably stupid things. They don't communicate with people that they should communicate with. And so as it moved into the thriller aspect of it, I didn't find it all that suspenseful or tense because it was just so ludicrous, so weird, and not usually in the right ways. It was just a poorly thought out script, and so it pulled me out of the movie. And even though the performances were kind of great, there's some bizarre weirdness in it that it was kind of interesting to me, I couldn't connect with the movie overall because there was so little logic to it. At number 7 is Dumbo. This live action remake of the classic is brought to the screen by Tim Burton, but I didn't really feel it had a lot of Tim Burtonisms to it. It didn't have his distinct weird style or look to it. And I appreciated that they found a good way to expand the story that I thought made sense. In a lot of ways, it felt kind of like if you had the original Dumbo and had a Dumbo 2 and made them into one movie. It does that pretty well, and it takes or continues on where the original film ends. And you got a great cast in here too, but it just didn't really resonate with me. The whole thing kind of felt phony. And there's a certain look, the way they kind of processed it, that I don't tend to like for movies like this, where even like I was paying so much attention to the grass in it, especially in the first 45 minutes of the film. I was just looking at the grass and how green it was. And that's not something I should be focusing on. Maybe that's something weird about me, but just how like, it was both kind of faded looking while being oversaturated at the same time. And so it distracted me a little bit. And also character motivation seemed frustrating to me. The kids were very smart and kind of put things together, but all the adults did a lot of really dumb things, and they didn't put things together particularly well, especially as you start moving deeper into the film, into the third act. It's like, what these characters are doing is really dumb. Like, I know we have to set up certain tensions, conflicts, and villains, but these people are acting really, really dumb at this point in time. And so it just didn't click and come together for me. I've heard some people say, it's a kid's movie. What were you expecting? And you're not the target audience. And that's true. And typically when I watch movies like this with my kids, it kind of livens me up a little bit and I can enjoy it more with them. I was watching this movie in a theater that was mostly empty by myself, and that changes the way you experience a film. You don't get the magic of an audience as you watch the elephant fly and things like that. But I can only review it based off the experience that I did have. And I don't think you can give a movie a pass just by saying, it's for kids, not for people like me. And so this one didn't resonate with me as much as I was hoping it would. Number 6 is Us. And this one is heartbreaking that it's this low on my list. I was a big fan of Key and Peele. There's some brilliant sketches in there. I was a fan of Get Out. And so I went into this one very optimistic. And I'd heard big praise from a bunch of people that saw it at South by Southwest. And for the first 2/3 of the movie, I was mostly tracking with where they were coming from because it's a very effective home invasion film with a creepiness vibe to it. Lots of symbolism, imagery inside of it. Jordan Peele has a great eye with the way he frames the shot, the cinematography, the use of color. Like, he clearly is spending time understanding that cinema is a visual format, so every shot, the way he set it up really matters. But then it transitions out of that after the second act and you go into the third act and I was like, why is this movie still going? Like, where is this going? And it starts to give answers and reveal things. And as it did that, all I saw were the plot holes. Like, a lot of people are talking about the movie afterwards and the symbolism and the imagery and what does this mean about current society and us, the US? What is it saying? Those weren't the questions I was asking. I was asking about all these plot holes and how did this work and why did this work and why did this person do this? That's where my mind was going. And I left the theater, was talking with some friends, and that's what they were experiencing too. They appreciated that there was some symbolism, what they were going for, but all they cared about, like myself, was all the plot holes. And I've spent the last couple of weeks having a lot of online discussion about it and a bunch of people saying, no, man, you just didn't get it. You need to watch it again. Then you'd appreciate all this. But none of them had answers to any of the very big plot holes that I picked up on inside of the film, that my friends noticed inside of the film. It was just kind of like, look at all the symbolism and look at this is repeated and all. Don't you care about that? And my answer is no, because the story didn't hold together for me. And because the story didn't hold together, that's all I care about. That's all I noticed. And all these other things, I've read articles trying to get what someone else is seeing in it, and I'm not getting there. I'm not connecting with whatever they're connecting with. And so as much as I loved 2/3 of this movie, the ending was kind of so far off, and so much of the movie is built on kind of that ending of the film that it just didn't work for me, unfortunately. Bringing us into the top 5 is the Highwaymen, a Netflix original film about the Texas Rangers or Highwaymen that were trying to track down Bonnie and Clyde, or the story of Bonnie and Clyde from the perspective of the police officers that were tracking them down. You got excellent source material, of course, here because, Bonnie and Clyde is such an interesting historic event and you're seeing it from a different perspective. So that's cool. And then the cast here, your two leads are Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson, I'm on board. Kathy Bates has a part in it. Several other people show up in these small roles, all of them really, really great in these little moments inside of it. And even just the simple concept of Kevin Costner 30 years after doing The Untouchables, returning to that similar time period and telling another story about tracking down some of these famous mobster type people of the 30s. That just in and of itself is exciting to me that that's something that exists out there. And so there's a bunch of things I really liked about it, but it's a pretty dull film, unfortunately. I would still go positive. I would go like a B-. I didn't review this one on my channel. I would give it a B-, 6 out of 10. Like, it's right at that I am 1 inch above the recommended versus not recommended. I'm just above it because it's so many things I loved about it. I watched it and then I wanted to like research everything. I was looking everything out about this story and everything. But the movie's over 2 hours long and it felt like you could trim 30 minutes off of it and it would have been much better. And it seemed like they wanted to be so true to real events that they didn't want to spice anything up too much that it just, nothing about it specifically pops. Like the cast is great. You're engaged enough, like you want to see where it's going, but you keep thinking, all right, let's get to it a little bit quicker. Let's get to it a little bit quicker. And so while I would recommend it, I'm only recommending it this much based off the cast and the story itself. The storytelling, it's much too slow for the material that they had. Coming in at number 4 is Triple Threat. If you don't know what this one is, it's like the Expendables of current martial arts stars. I mean, you got Tony Jaa, Iko from The Raid, Scott Adkins, Michael Jai White, like all these guys crammed into one movie. And as someone that enjoys martial arts films a good bit, I'm the guy that rents the movies from Redbox and checks out a lot of that stuff. Huge Tony Jaa fan. When I saw that this lineup of people was going to be in a movie together, I was very excited. So I went to actually see this one in the theater. And it's a good enough martial arts action film, but it's not up to the standards of the concept of all of these guys coming together. Tony Jaa is much better in Ong Bak and The Protector. The Raid is better than this movie. Scott Adkins is better in Undisputed. Scott Adkins and Michael Jai White are better in Undisputed 2 than what you get in this movie. So this movie, action-packed. You get all the action you want. The plot is pretty good. I mean, it's an action movie. It's a straightforward. This isn't, if you take the action out, it's not like a great plot. But for the genre, they've got a nice enough setup. It's told in a way that you can understand what's going on. And the action is certainly above average for above the standard that where Hollywood is normally at, but it's not quite up to where these guys have been and have done things in the past. And so in that regard, it's a little bit disappointing. With all of them, you're like, oh, that was a cool thing from that guy. I wish I'd gotten more from them. But when you've got this many people in it, it's hard to have everyone get as much as you want from everyone. So this one's definitely one I enjoyed it. If you like martial arts action movies, you got to check this one out. If it's not your genre, then you can skip it. Remember to join me down in the comment section. Tell me which March new releases did you see, which ones did you love, and which ones did you hate. Also, remember that there's going to be a sale on my t-shirts in just a couple of days, 35% off. If you like this shirt or some of the other ones that I wear inside my videos, you can check that out in my merch store. The link is down below in the description. Kicking off the top 3 is Captain Marvel. Now, I actually saw this one 3 times in the theater. I went to go see it with my buddies the night that it came out. Then I took my kids to see it on a Saturday. And just this past week, I took my wife to finally go see it. And I think it's aged a little bit. It's grown on me a little bit. I was a little bit mixed on it when I initially saw it. It definitely has the polish of an MCU film. I loved Nick Fury inside of it. There's some solid jokes. Ben Mendelsohn is a nice change of pace from what he normally does. But the storytelling I thought was a little bit disjointed. It seemed like different people were directing different scenes, and some of the acting is a little bit clunky in the way it works. And I pointed at Brie Larson as one of the examples of that, and her character seemed a little bit distant. Having seen the movie 3 times now, I would say that some of the acting is still clunky, especially Annette Bening is doing some weird stuff in the movie. The overall tone seemed to get a little bit more cohesive with time, and Brie Larson's character makes more sense the more you watch the movie and realize all the kind of arcs of everything going on. So it grew on me a little bit, not a ton. It's not going to like drastically shift in my MCU rankings, but I liked it a little bit more than before. Something that also popped rewatching it, that there's some pretty big issues in how the Skrull are handled, the death of Skrull are handled inside of the story, where massive people die, and it's kind of like, whatever, people died. And that seemed a little bit weird that they would show so little concern for the amount of death for the Skrull inside of the film. That was something I picked up, especially the third time I watched it. Like, this is getting kind of weird. But overall, it's an interesting addition to the MCU. I'll say that. Because you're in the 90s, because you're with so much young Nick Fury, or younger Nick Fury, it has a nice place, I think, inside of the MCU. Our runner-up is Triple Frontier. This is another Netflix original with a great cast of actors, and it's essentially a group of former military guys decide to go on a heist and rob some drug cartel people, and it's all about the consequences of that heist and exploring ideas about greed and consequences and everything like that. And I just thought it was a really nicely constructed heist film. It's not like a movie that's like Oscar bait, it's not that, but a movie that does exactly what it sets out to do really well. The first 30 minutes establish kind of their plan and getting the team together. And then for the rest of the movie, you're just on this heist and on the getaway. And because the first 30 minutes is so efficient at establishing their rules as a team, what they're trying to accomplish, and you pay attention to all the right things in it. So when the heist begins and people start to compromise, things are changed, they don't follow through on the plan. When things happen like that, you know it matters. And as you kind of get into the getaway, every detail, every little thing that happened, you can just see the dominoes being set up and knocked over throughout the whole film. So I really enjoyed this film. This is what I want Netflix original films to be like, this one right here. Now, I will say this, probably my biggest criticism is that I didn't think the individual characters were characterized particularly well. What I mean by that is you got this great set of actors and everyone does a good job in the movie, but you felt like any one of these actors could have played any one of the other characters. It's not like you felt like Ben Affleck has to play that guy. There's nothing like that. Like Charlie Hunnam, you could swap any of the Diego Luna, any of them could have swapped out and you're all totally fine and nothing would have been changed. Minor complaint, but that was kind of the one thing that it kind of knocked it back just a little bit for me. Otherwise, I really enjoyed this film. But in first place is Dragged Across Concrete. If you don't know this, this was actually one of my top 10 most anticipated films of 2018. And then it didn't come out in 2018. Like it debuted at some film festivals, but it came out in the month of March. And so I went to go see it. The only time it was playing in the city of Austin was at 10:50 at night. And this movie's almost 3 hours long and I'm pretty old. And so that was a very, very late movie for me to watch. And it's also a very slow paced movie. So this one tested my ability to stay awake during a film. And I loved this. I loved it. So this is from the director of Bone Tomahawk as well as Brawl and Cell Block 99. And he does these very dark, slow burn movies with great, intense villains, getting kind of classic actors and kind of putting them in there and real nice dialogue between the characters. And it's not in a hurry to get where it's going, but you're really invested in it. And he tells stories in a way that it's almost chapter-like. And so each scene is longer than a scene would normally be in a movie. And you kind of play things out in a certain way. And that's all of this is true of this film. It takes about an hour before you're like even know where the story's going. Like a full hour into the movie and you're like, okay, this is cool. Where are we going though? Like I have no clue what the plot of this movie is and we're an hour into it. And then finally it kicks in and you're like, oh, I see what's going on here. And everything is just meticulously put in place. Because the dialogue is so strong and you love seeing, Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn together just having dialogue and you care about all of it, the movie pulls together because of that. This isn't a movie for everyone. It's very slow paced. It's very dark. There's no one that's like the hero of the story. It's not like you get to the end of it and you're like, the good guys triumphing. It's not that type of movie at all. It's all about kind of dark people doing some evil things because of the circumstances they're in. But for me, it paid off in the end. It was very satisfying. I love what this director is doing. And even though I've been waiting for this one for a very long time, it did not disappoint me. And even though I started watching this 3-hour movie at 11 o'clock at night, I stayed awake till the end. And it's my favorite movie of the year thus far. So it comes in at number 1. Remember to share which ones you saw down below in the comment section. Come back to my merch store in a couple days for a sale on these killer t-shirts. Thank you so much for watching and keep talking movies too much.